Okay. So yeah, we are live on YouTube, and I'll just, I'll just. I think this is the link because last time I was having trouble in sending you the link. I think this one I just sent you. I don't know if it's the one working or not. I mean, if you want to share it, you can also share it in post. Okay.
Okay. You sent it to my email?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I'll take a look.
Okay, we are live, and first of all, I want to thank you for accepting the invitation to this live stream. I do it live mainly because I'm lazy, and doing things live, it's halfway done when it's over. That's
Right.
that's the main thing. I've been doing a lot of recorded videos lately. That's why I'm saying this. But going straight to the subject today. Our conversation is about Russell Texas Bentley, which I consider a friend. Last time I spoke with you, uh, I haven't been to Russia yet. I haven't been to Donetsk yet. In the meantime, I've been there. I've met Russell personally. I've met some other people in Russia too. Uh, I want to go back, really. I had set a meeting with Russell again next October. Unfortunately, it won't happen. But and I was surprised. Maybe I don't know if you were surprised as much as me. But let's start by asking you a very broad question. What do you think it happened?
Well, thanks for having me. Listen, could you just send me the link, not from your studio, but just like, like just the YouTube link,
Okay,
from
yeah, yeah.
maybe.
I knew somehow I knew that would happen.
Yeah.
Because
Um,
I'm doing on multi-stream and
right.
I'm a mess sorting out these live streams. Okay, I admit it. Uh, I make them work. I don't know exactly how. Let's see.
Hmm.
So I'm just
Yeah, I was thinking of doing streams myself, but then I was like, it'll take me like, a couple, maybe like 10 hours of solid, like
so
figuring it out. And
I'm
I'm just too
just
lazy even to do
yeah.
that. I was thinking of doing streams myself, but it's going to be blogging for me.
Okay,
So
let
I
me see.
understand.
So it's share. It's being a bit slow to respond. Okay, I think I got it now. I'll send it to you right away. Sorry, folks, for the inconvenience. Okay, I think this one is the one.
Great.
Okay.
Well, listen, so let's talk about Russell.
Yeah.
Well, if I don't know if your listeners know this, but I'm just going to try to address a kind of wide audience with it, because I'm gonna post the link as well, and I think people that aren't necessarily your audience will listen to it to get my take on it as well.
Okay.
So let's just give a broad overview of what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Russell lives in Donbass. He lives in Donetsk, and he's been there for a long time. He came over as a volunteer, and he was in Vostok. And the whole life story of
Yeah.
Russell
Yeah.
is very interesting. So what happened is that he disappears, and kind of randomly, and the story is that and his wife takes over his channel and starts talking about how he heard there was some explosion, some shelling in the city, and he rushed off to see if his help was needed, and he just never came back. And from there, pretty much we got very little details coming out, and it was a very suspicious situation, and he was missing for many days before we started hearing that he may have been kidnapped by the 5th Tank by the fifth tankers,
Yes.
which is yeah. And then quickly after that, we heard that, well, it's a little bit more than just a kidnapping. He's dead, and that's where we're at right now. I mean, I've been following the channel. There've been a couple of updates, but they think they may have found the burnt remains of his body in some abandoned factory. That's a post that came out, I
Yes.
believe, yesterday.
Yes. Yes. I've published a short video about it. I've been in contact with his wife Ludmila, which I met also personally. I was supposed to, when I was there, I was supposed to have stayed at a hotel, but Russell insisted that I would stay at his place, so I did, and it turned out to be for the best. It was very nice experience, and so I have this opportunity to contact Ludmila directly and to talk to her. But I still, despite all this latest news that we've heard, and you just mentioned that the car was found at the factory, the Lada Niva, which I also know, I rode on that car, um and with the body charred inside, burnt body inside, supposedly from from Russell. And all what you said is the same as I know, and I think it's, and his wife confirms the story. But I remember the first article that you published about it, which remember was the first time we talked, and then we decided to do the live stream a little bit later because new information was coming up. And
Yeah.
I was hoping that you would know, or at least you would have an opinion on several possibilities. You would be more enlightened than me. I mean, on your first article, you spoke of, you described Donetsk as a place, and I did not recognize Donetsk in that description of yours. Of course, I was not there for long, but I would like you to elaborate more on that, if you will.
Well, yeah, it was a pretty harsh description, but I don't know what to tell you. I mean, that's if you just talk to soldiers or people who've been there, reporters like war correspondents. Um, that's pretty much what I characterized it as a very criminal zone, and a zone that is afflicted by drugs and by organized crime and by targeted assassinations. And we can go down the list of like all the people who have died in suspicious circumstances uh, in this in since in this entire period, since basically I guess the start of the rebellion till now. And I mean, it's not just Russell that's gone missing. I think the shocking thing about the Russell story is that so far, from what we know, um, he was killed by his own, and it's sort of like the most blatant example of it. But there have been others, like a Mangushev, I think his name was, the guy who
Mhm.
also a volunteer. He had his own PMC. I think it was called it was Raccoon Unot, and he died under very suspicious circumstances as well. And his was kind of blatant, and it was obviously a hit done by somebody from again his side, from the local Donbass policemen were used to kill this guy. And this happened like about a year into the SMO or something like that. I wrote about his death as well. His call sign was Berik, I think, which means
Mhm.
shore.
Mhm.
So Texas isn't the first one to have gone out. Obviously, all the original militia commanders died, and I don't know what Texas. I think Texas's view on this was that they were killed by Kiev, but I got to tell you, a lot of people who participated in the rebellion on the side of Donbass, on the side of the Russian people, they would say that the killings were organized by Moscow. Some of them seem like very difficult to deny, like, for example, Zakharchenko, who was the former head of the DNR.
Mhm.
And he was replaced immediately by someone who was very conducive to the interests of a very influential oligarchic goon uh, operating out of Moscow. That one was kind of blatant. And the thing about Russell was that he was kind of close with Horakovsky of Vostok Battalion.
Yeah.
And right, I mean, and the thing about Horakovsky is that he's like the only guy who survived, the only commander who made it out, other than him and Strelkov. And Strelkov obviously was pulled out, and he's an FSB reservist, so maybe he had some sort of special privilege or whatever. But so Hodakovsky is a former SBU spook, and he was basically not fighting even for Donbass independence. He was just like doing his own thing. He later joined the cause, and this was actually a point of friction between Texas and a lot of other bloggers and people like Strelkov, because they all hated Hodakovsky very much, and they called him a traitor and all these things. And Texas would defend his former commander. And what's interesting, I don't know if you know this is some new information possibly, is that Hodakovsky, this commander, this guy who's a bigwig now in Donbass, former SBU guy, Russell's former commander, he deleted posts talking about Russell's death. And he then explained by saying that it would be bad for morale and unpatriotic for him to share information about what had occurred to Russell.
I
So
I have read that from you. I didn't get to see the posts. I don't want to interrupt you. I just saying. Please go on.
yeah, so so Russell goes to bat for this guy. That means he supports this guy. He sort of says no, like, rumors aside. I think when he was on my show, that's what he said. He said that this guy he's loyal. He's like he's solid. He's a good commander, and Russell stands by him. That's what he said.
Yes.
But when it came down to when minutes and hours were important, assuming that there was a period of time when Russell was captured. Gee, I don't know. Maybe the commander, the guy with all these contacts, who's a former spook, who is an intelligence officer, right? Who has all these assets everywhere, all these connections.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he could have done something. I don't know. Because the wife, Ludmila,
Mm-hmm.
as you will attest, was begging anyone for help. And she kept saying nobody was replying, nobody was helping out. And obviously, some of Russell's friends spoke out and they made videos appealing to whoever to release him. But he wasn't getting any official support. She said the FSB was not in contact with her. She couldn't get in contact with these people. So, and the thing is, and I hate to, but Strelkov's like would always say that whenever there's some sort of deception or a betrayal or a murder in Donbass, Hodakovsky is involved in it, or Hodakovsky's scheming is somehow involved in it. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't understand even what the causes of his killing might be.
Mm-hmm.
But I do know that there is a cover up right now happening of the killing, and that is undeniable. So we can speculate about why he was killed,
Mm-hmm.
but we can't. But it is a fact that there's a total gag order. I mean, Hodakovsky just basically said it. He was like, "Yeah, we're told by Moscow." Like this is so they know, the higher ups know about this. They know it's a bad PR case. They know that this is a huge mess up, and they told people not to talk about it. And you can see the radio silence. You can go on these other bloggers. We all know their names. We all know who they are. We know who these big Russia bloggers are. Radio silence from the big names.
Mm-hmm.
So, they got the order. You'd think that they would feel some solidarity for their guy. I mean, I'm a little bit crazy. I understand that. My views are a little bit idiosyncratic, a little bit not conformist. But I really don't see what they could possibly when Gonzago Lira was
Gonzalo Lira. Yes.
dying,
Yes.
when he was dying in an SBU dungeon, okay, these bloggers, they got the same call. Like we had Ritter denouncing Lira as actually he's a CIA agent or an SBU agent or something. He's discrediting Russia. So when in a previous example, when one of these pro-Russian guys was taken captive and he wasn't killed immediately, he was
Mm-hmm.
suffering for a long time. And what did these guys do? Did they they take orders from Moscow. They're told what to say by Moscow.
Can
And what did Moscow say?
can
Sorry,
I
go ahead.
can I no 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 I don't like to interrupt, but a question arises when you're talking about such thing. Is that for example, would you name some of these preeminent bloggers are, for example, the guys from the Duran included in this criticism, uh, or are you
Well,
talking about some other names or some other blogs or
well,
news?
the yeah, I mean, the Durant people are. If you're asking whether I'm saying they're just straight up Kremlin propagandists with not, and who just literally follow the line and repeat what they're paid to say, yes, I will 100% say that. I will 100% defend that assertion. This is not, alternative media. This is not independent media. This is not investigative media. This is literally repeating state propaganda from Moscow. And there's this idea that, like, if we're against Washington's imperialism and their like colonialism and I don't know, just all the bad stuff that they do, whatever label you want to call it,
Mm-hmm.
that Moscow has to be the good guys, and that is just not true. Okay, there's a lot of people that get ground up and spat out that are in between these two, colossal, forces. Smaller people, small fry, right? Like Russell, like there's a whole list of bodies and attempted assassinations from Donbass. I do my best to chronicle all of this, but so just to get to the point that I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying to drive to
Mm-hmm.
here is that yes, there is a cover up, and that the big names are not talking about this. They're not speculating about it. They didn't put out the call when maybe it could have helped. They didn't raise the alarm when maybe it could have helped.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been radio silence all around.
Mm-hmm.
And now we should, like, if they were genuine, like, I know people from my blog were reaching out to Patrick Lancaster, and they were reaching out to other people on Twitter, other Z people on Twitter, and
Mm-hmm.
and this is what people are writing in my comment section, that they were getting blocked or they were getting totally ignored just for asking, yo, what happened to our boy Russell.
Mm-hmm.
So apparently you can't do that anymore. So they all got, and Hodakovsky spilled the beans. He said, I was told not to talk about it. It's bad for morale. Now, the correct thing to do, the actual patriotic thing to do, the just thing to do is to order an investigation to find the killers, to put them on trial, to get to the bottom of what happened, and to make it as transparent as possible, and to harshly punish these people, to help Ludmilla, to make it a big thing. And I think some big shot from Moscow should come over to their apartment, and it should be with flowers, apologizing. There
Mm-hmm.
should be a monument put up to this guy.
I
That would be the correct response. That
I
would be like, yeah,
I do. Yes, I do. I just say that I do agree that there should be a monument put up to Russell. I think he should be in the alley of heroes there in Donetsk, in the Lenin. Uh, I don't recall the exact name. You know where where the big stadium where they put up the
yeah.
big Shakhtar Donetsk stadium. There, I was there with Russell. Uh, and but I still have a hard time. I want to go back a little bit to the. I no one. I must say, I must put this forward. No one told me to be quiet. I don't get paid by anyone. I do this out of my own belief. Out of I do. That's why I identify a lot with Russell, because he followed his beliefs very strongly, and so and I put out a video in my very badly spoken Russian, appealing to this Fifth Brigade to release my friend, and not to do bad deeds, not to be bad people, and so on. And then I realized that I might have be violating some law. Not, the law that you cannot discredit the Russian armed forces. And
Right.
I censored myself on that one. I mean, I didn't, because also I didn't want to raise. I was not sure of what I was saying. I don't know if it is the 50th Brigade or not still. All right, I don't know, and I think no one outside of the circle of what happened knows who actually did that. So I don't want to raise any more rumors, any more alarms, and I actually took down the video myself, and also out of respect. But Russell, I mean, talking about a hit, Russell wasn't supposed to be there at that moment. He was doing his things, his daily things, taking care of paperwork with his wife. He rushed there because there are a lot of arrivals in Donetsk. There were arrivals while I was there, and they keep happening. Keeps being bombed, and he rushed there like I rushed with him when I was there uh, to site of arrivals, and then it happened. So I will say this, and please let me know if you agree. I do think it might be just an accidental escalation. For example, Russell arrives at the scene. Maybe there was some military thing going on. These guys, obviously, because there's a lot of new military coming to Donetsk, of course they don't know Russell. Russell is known, but it's not known by everyone. And also Russell is not the kind of guy to shut up. I've witnessed this in front of Russian soldiers while I was there with him. Uh, and so maybe he was given an order, he did not immediately comply, or they were being paranoid that he would really be a spy, and he did not comply, and things escalated. This is the chance that I put out, honestly, that I think most probable, because to be a hit, I don't know. What? Let me know what you.
Well, I don't know. We don't know. But let's look a little bit deeper into this. We do know that there's a kind of cover up. That's just blatant. For some reason,
Yes.
what, do these people not know how to use the internet? Did they not see all the appeals, all the people explaining, oh wait, that's Russell? What they didn't, I mean, they could have. Do they not have the internet? Of course they have the internet. So what, did they not see these appeals?
But imagine they
And
throw him to the ground. He hits the head. He dies instantly. It's
right,
done. It's done. Right.
but hold on. But the body, right? Why would you burn the body like that? It's to cover up the crime, or it's to cover up abuse, right? I don't know. It seemed like Ludmila was under the impression that he was still alive, and you know, I was under the impression that yeah, he was taken captive for a time. I don't know
Yeah.
if he was
Me
just
too.
killed
Me too.
outright.
Yeah.
If he, but it could have been the fact that his body was destroyed in that way. It could have been done to cover up the abuse, and there was a lot of rumors flying around. I don't know if any of them were true. We don't know yet, but that he had been sexually abused, and this is a common tactic used by the secret police and by non-Russians, actually, what we would call ethnic Russians.
Like,
You know,
you mentioned the Buryats on your
right. So
article.
the fifth tankers are Buryats and Buratians, and they're not Russians. So you know, perhaps there was a racial revenge element at play. It's constant. I mean, if you actually follow the news, there's a lot of stuff that gets dismissed as propaganda, but the Buryatians are constantly being accused of, you know, getting into trouble, trying to rape local women, stealing something, getting drunk, and getting into trouble. Anyone who's lived in a Russian city knows that some of these non-Russian ethnic Russians, when they get access to alcohol, they become very belligerent. It's kind of like they have a very difficult relationship with alcohol. Who knows? Maybe they were drunk out of their minds. Uh, maybe that is the simplest explanation, because when they're drunk, they are very difficult. They're out of control.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's what happened. I don't know. But let's just look at the facts again. So the body is destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps that's to cover up the abuse that was done to the body. Rumors were circulating that he had been sexually abused, and that even perhaps his head had been cut off. Now, I don't know about that. That's more like of a Muslim thing to do. Like the Muslims like to mutilate the corpses. But I don't know. Maybe the Buryatians did it too. I don't know. It's just rumors. But
Yeah.
we do
Yo.
know that the body was the body was destroyed. So let's so we know there's a cover up. The body was destroyed. We know that the Buryatians were somehow involved. And we know that there were these appeals that were made, and they could have seen them. I mean, I don't see how they couldn't have seen them. And we also know one more little detail is that Russell, at least when he was talking to me, it's recorded, it's documented, 2 interviews, very critical of the Kremlin,
Yeah,
actually,
yeah,
very critical.
yeah, I saw that. I saw that, and I actually called the attention of Russell for that. And honestly, I mean, I've been the most honest as I can be with you. I called it, Russell. What is it? And but I also know that people know that Russell is an outspoken person, right? Sometimes he's angry with things, and he doesn't hide it. Like, is not the kind of guy to play those games. I mean, I watched him being angry with, like I just mentioned, with Russian soldiers in front of me, because he caught this Russian soldier throwing like cigarette butts on the ground near his house. He called him all the ugly names in Russian, and he made the soldier pick up the cigarette butts over there. So you see what kind of temperament Russell had, and in the good way, yeah. So that's, I don't know, yeah. I okay, the cover up. Let's go there. I think you were insisting on that, and I think it's a fair, because it's really strange. Also, his wife, in his words, we understand that this is happening just by reading her comments. And my take on it is that if it's something to do with the army, and we don't want to discredit the army in such hard times where the army has such an important role, couldn't couldn't that be the simple reason for it? Rolo, you there? Okay, I think we lost Rolo Slavskiy for a moment. Previously had kicked a connected cable, which unplugged him from the call. Let's see if he gets back. Yeah, he left the meeting. Let's see if he gets back soon. I'm sorry for the interruption. I actually don't. Okay, Rolo is back. You
Yeah,
back?
can you hear?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Can you hear?
So
Sorry.
you kicked another cable.
Yeah, I kicked the same one actually.
Okay.
It's a little embarrassing. But you asked me like, okay, it's just about like
Okay,
protect.
the cover up. I don't know if you heard my take on
Yeah,
the
I did.
cover up. Okay.
Yeah, well, look, who's being discredited here? It's the people who are being discredited are the fifth, Buryatian tankers, and yeah, maybe they don't want a light shown on the fact that they commit a lot of crimes, and that yeah, people do complain about them, and that they've been complaining about them for many years actually, and maybe they don't, maybe they're afraid that their whole multi-culti you know, everybody, anti-Russian, like anti-nationalism propaganda. Maybe they're afraid that that'll be undermined. Maybe Russell is just, something to be tossed into the fire because, well, we can't have anyone critiquing our precious Buryatians. I mean, that's happened in Russia before. The media covers up migrant crime. The media crimes covers up crime of Buryatians and Dagis and Chechens against the Russian people. I've been assaulted in St. Petersburg twice by diversity. So I mean, that could be just as simple as that. We see that in the West. Anytime a black knifes a white, what happens? Oh, it's just, an underprivileged youth who was speaking out against his systemic oppressors. It's not that bad. It's not as bad in Russia, but that could be part of the angle as well. And then the subsequent cover up, it's already done, like it's already happened. So I mean, are we discrediting the army, or are we discrediting the people in Moscow who told everybody to shut up and not speak up about it, or who didn't even try to find this guy, who didn't even launch an investigation into trying to get him? I mean, it's obviously a huge PR like scandal. So yeah, sure, I could see that, but there's just other ways of addressing it, and it hints at something dark and gruesome. That's the problem here. And they don't want to punish people. Like, I mean, like, okay, but do we have any proof? If they, okay, so they want to hush it up or whatever, but they should still punish these people, shouldn't they? No, I haven't heard anything about that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I've heard an appeal for that. I read an appeal for that on Russell's Telegram posted by Lyudmila, and it says signed by Vestova. It says, we demand to establish the circumstances of the death of volunteer, veteran, Russian warrior Russell Bonner Bentley. If the investigation reveals those responsible, we demand that they be punished to the fullest extent of the law. Sign Vestova. That's so far what I know about it. Uh, and but in the previous post that Lyudmila posted on Russell channel, it said that Donetsk was trying to hush it up, but Moscow unblocked it.
Right, I heard that, and I immediately wrote to, like, the people I talked to. I was like, I don't believe that for a second. Look, all respect to Ludmila, but I mean, I don't think she understands the situation she's in and the intricacies of the situation. Like, I mean, who is in communication with her? Who is telling her these things? Uh, it, you know, can this woman who is in grief and who is not like a politician and who's not very following insider politics within the Kremlin, is she capable of discerning who is telling her the truth, who isn't? I don't know. Yeah, sure. On some level, Donetsk is covering it up. That is 100% undeniable. I mean, it's where's the local police? Where is there's militias all over the place. Why aren't they doing anything? The whole place is completely overrun by spooks. It's completely crawling with FSB. In fact, that's what Russell and I talked about on the telephone last time we spoke. We talked about how these rich kids from Moscow on their fancy cars were driving all around Donbass, Donetsk, and pushing the locals around, and that the whole place was just like completely overrun by spooks. That was Russell's words. So, okay, what, they couldn't figure it out? They can't get cracking. They can't get investigating. So, and I mean, who in Moscow is looking into it? Moscow has many different agencies, many different.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. We'll see. That's all I'll say.
Okay.
I
Okay.
think things are going to end up pretty opaque, pretty gray. I think we're not going to like whatever news we get, and I don't think there's going to be justice because, listen, look, there's no rule of law in the Slav lands. Like, I mean, if you do not have a krisha, if you are not someone's vassal, basically, it's basically like a feudal system. So if you're not a Chechen who has a chieftain who is mobbed up in Moscow with the FSB, if you're not a Dagi from Dagestan with the same situation, if you're not an Azeri with the who works as part of the Azeri mafia, if you're not part of like the some gang or the other, if you don't have a krisha, if you don't have a roof over your head, is what it's called. It's like a mob protection. You're nobody. There's no rule of law in Russia. I got banned. I got my stuff stolen from me by the FSB. Who can I appeal to? Just a much smaller case of this. I've reached out to lawyers. Nobody will touch my case, even though nobody understands like how this happened. It's like, oh well, you see, we can't do anything. There's no rule of law. You can't sue somebody. You can't bring the FSB to court. You can't bring these Buratians to court. It's all just about who is under whose vassal like patronage. That's it. And if Russell didn't have a patron, I think he was under Khodakovsky's krisha. I think he was part of his thing, and Khodakovsky publicly basically washed his hands of Russell. Then that's it. If you don't have somebody higher up who has your back, then there's no justice. And I'm not just calling out Russia and Donbass for this. This is a model it's everywhere. It's in Belarus, to a much lesser extent in Belarus, but it's all over in Ukraine as well. This is like the model of like quasi failed states, of banana republics. It's the same everywhere in many countries where you have criminal mafias in control. We have it emerging in the West, and in no small part. But yeah, it's been there ever since the late 80s, and arguably before in the Soviet Union, and it's definitely been there since the 90s, and it hasn't gone anywhere. So unless Ludmila has some friends in high places in Moscow, which I seriously doubt, especially after talking to Russell and hearing about his whole situation there, then I'm sorry, there's no one you can appeal to. I mean, the liberals are not going to look into this. The opposition groups, they're probably happy that he's dead,
Mhm.
because they hate Russia, and then and Russell was basically like saying that Russell was fighting for the Russian world, the Russian idea. Who's going to take up his cause? Will the communists take up his cause? I don't know. I haven't seen anything from their channels about this. So I mean, who? Strelkov's in prison. That's the okay. I've been rambling, but this is a point I've been
No, no,
wanting to
no,
get at.
no. But I get you. I get. I mean, I follow you.
Let,
You,
let me just say this last thing.
of course.
I don't know. I don't know. Of course, I don't know. I just know some details. I'm adding some details, but I can step back and I can look at the bigger picture, the broader picture. Just looking from the bird's eye view down. Isn't it interesting? Isn't it interesting that all the cases are different, and we don't know all the details, and we can't be accusing and pointing fingers, and we blah blah blah. But at the end of the day, here we are 2 years into this special military operation, and everybody who is critical of the Kremlin from a patriotic perspective, except for like what, I don't know who's even left, they're all gone. Like what, someone's daughter was assassinated, and then all of a sudden he changed his tune, and he's very pro Kremlin now, even though literally days before the assassination of his daughter, he was seriously, severely critiquing the Kremlin. One politician from Crimea,
I,
his car blows up. You
sorry.
know,
Are
Go ahead.
you're referring to, just to be clear? You're referring to Daria Dugina, or
Yeah, yeah, of course.
hmm.
And Dukin was Dukin was a Nazbol. He was a fierce critic of the Kremlin, literally, criticizing everything about the SMO. And then boom, his daughter assassinated. He goes into grief for like a year, comes back, and all of a sudden he's like, "Oh yeah, the Kremlin's doing fine, everything's great." And then Tsarev, Oleg Tsarev, the MP from Crimea, this
Yeah,
firebrand,
yeah. I
the,
know. I will Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
this
Sorry,
fire.
sorry to interrupt. Maybe it's a bit lag in the communication, but I don't want to really interrupt you. I know Oleg Tsarev. Yeah. I follow his posts as well.
Yeah, his posting changes. All of a sudden, it's like he doesn't touch anything anymore. Before that, he was quite, he was revealing some interesting stuff. Obviously, Prigozhin's gone, but I'm not saying he was a hero or anything like that. But he was saying interesting things. You just go down the list. I mean, commanders, just people with Telegram channels, bloggers. For some reason, I'm not saying anything, but if we just take a step back, at the end of the day, for some reason, all of the patriotic, sort of more patriotic than the Kremlin type people like Russell and all these others that I've named, they're gone. Isn't that interesting? And the people who are on the other side of the political spectrum, they seem to be doing okay. I mean, like, what are the odds of that? That's all I have to say. Like, I see a trend here. I can't prove anything. I won't say anything, but I do see a trend. That's all.
Shit's heavy. Uh, I really, I mean, I, I, I can only say that of course, Rolo, you understand me. I cannot. These are your words. These are not my thoughts. And actually, this is not about me, but I do think otherwise. Maybe I'm naive. I don't know. You can accuse me of that. I won't get offended by it. But I mean, all the string of you connected all these dots to the same source, and I have a hard time doing that. But moving on, do you think? What do you think? Do you think there will be no outcome out of this? So will just be silence, and time will wash it away, or what do you think the outcome will be? I mean, I have a hard time believing that too. I mean, I think there will be some guilt attributed to someone. That's my firm belief. I mean, that this can't just be washed away in time, in silence. What do you think of it? Do you think?
Well, the thing is that it can. I mean, there's been a lot of cases that have no explanation for it, and the propaganda is so intense that, like, if you ask about it, all you get is like this sort of virtual death stare, like, just don't talk about it. Yeah, listen, it is a very much in the realm of possibility that it will just be completely forgotten and swept under the table. Perhaps there will be some kind of explanation given, but please do not think that it is impossible or that it is beyond the pale or that oh no, there has to at least be some no, there doesn't. There hasn't been. There's been a half a dozen, no, there's been way more than that, instances where exactly that has happened and people just don't bring it up. And if you bring it up with them, they look at you like, okay, man, like, you're in dangerous territory here. Why can't we talk about this? Why does everyone feel like they can't talk about this? Is it really because they fear discrediting the army, or do they fear something else? Because I got to be honest, what I know about human nature, I think people respond more to, threats and like that sort of fear, not like, oh, I'm just trying to create a positive image for my side. I'm just an angel. I'm thinking about the greater cause and the greater good, and that's why I'm going to keep silent. No, I think people keep silent because they fear that they might be the next one, and that's what's happening here.
I must say that I'm feel safe. I do not qualify for that. I mean, I live pretty far away. So I actually, and like I said, I'm not paid by anyone. Although my outfit may be suspicious. Actually, I bought these clothes in Donetsk. But like I said, I still, I mean, I keep always good dose of reasonable doubt about all these claims. I know your opinions, Rolo, about
Yeah.
you're very. I mean, you just listen to you for a couple of minutes, and I know you really feel like you. I mean, you're really disappointed at you are Russian, right? You are Russian. Because sometimes I forget because you speak so good English, and I you are Russian, correct? It is a question. It is a question.
Yeah, I'm pretty open about like my background. I was born in Kiev. I've always considered myself pro-Russian. I spent 7 years in Russia studying, and
Ah,
I worked in Russia.
oh, you were born in Kiev. Okay, okay. In the Soyuz, in the Soviet Union, or
Yeah, and my parents are, like from that as well, and so my whole family is, and
Mhm.
yeah. Anyway, so I'm like part of that world, and I've never really, you know. Anyway, so I've shared stories about this on my blog. And people like people like accuse me of like, oh, he's a Ukrainian. I'm like, first of all,
no, I'm
your
not.
own
Look,
propaganda.
no,
No, no,
no,
not you,
no, no.
not you, not you, not you, not you. I know, I know,
I
I
know,
know,
I
I
know.
know. But people who haven't read the blog, it's like I've told you that from day one. First of all, second of all, your own damn propaganda says that Ukrainians are just Russians, which I agree with. So, like, what are you saying? I'm Ukrainian. Why are you using the term of the enemy? Like, I thought this was a term that was supposed to divide once united people. Anyway, basically, Ukrainian has come to mean, or a Nazi Ukrainian has come to mean anyone that critiques the Shoigu or the Putin. That's it. I mean, I get banned from like every single Russian chat just because, like, English language Russian chat, just because I start asking some questions about, well, how many more years do we have left? How many more Nazis do we have to exterminate? How many more millions have to be attrition? I mean, the average like Xenon person thinks that like 6 million Ukrainian males have been exterminated, and that this is a good thing. And it's like, what? This is like Westerners cheering. Like, first, the cognitive dissonance is insane. Like, first
Mhm.
you say that this is one united people, then you cheer that they're being exterminated, and then you say it's a humanitarian moral war because they're being attritioned. And it's like, what is going on here? Anyway, but yeah, that's a very long answer to your question.
No, 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 no. It's just because, and it's just. I know it's off topic, but it was just a curiosity of because your English is so perfect and you have no accent whatsoever, and I don't know it. That's why I asked. That's the
Well,
that was the only reason. I do not attack any of my guests on this podcasts. It doesn't matter if I agree or do not agree with them. We're on the base of the arguments solely. I mean, I have no reason for this. And my genuine intention of talking to you today is because I was hoping. I mean, of course you have more knowledge of this culture. I'm an outsider. I've been near St. Petersburg. I don't know, maybe in 2005. Yeah, it was back in the summer of 2005. And the second time I was in Russia was just last November, when I met Russell. What I have a hard time to when I saw Russia and I was there and I went completely alone, and then I've ended up meeting people there, people that I was expecting to meet, and people that I randomly met, like in pubs and stuff, because I went out at night. I wanted to know how it was, if it was safe, unsafe, all this kind of thing. And this country that I met, and the level of services, the level of organization, cleanness, this city management. I've been to Moscow, then I've been to Volgograd, I've been to Rostov, Donetsk, and it doesn't match a country with the kind of organizations that you describe. That's you see, I have a hard time matching these two countries, because for example, the US is run by greedy corporations. This is my opinion, this is my view of it. And I look at it and it's shit. I mean, it's inequality all over, huge prison population, litter on. You like have entire neighborhood cities full of litter and drugs, and you know. And I didn't see any of this in Russia. Actually, I seen, for example, Moscow. I've seen a model city over there. Of course, I haven't been everywhere, but this was my impression, right? I'm not saying it's the absolute truth. I'm just saying that it doesn't match then to the description as you make, the characterization that you make of such government. I wouldn't imagine that such corrupt government would put up such an organized society. That's all. That's my take on it. I know
Yeah,
we're going
Moscow's
off
pretty
topic now,
nice.
but
Yeah, Moscow's pretty nice. That's true. That's one of the critiques is that Moscow's like siphoning all the money from the rest of the country. But yeah, it's true. Especially the center of Moscow. It's quite nice. One of the problems with Moscow is that it's increasingly becoming extremely diverse. So it's going the way of London, and who knows? In 10 years, probably less, it'll be majority non-Russian.
I
Um,
confirm that. It was diverse, but I share Russell's opinion. I think that's a good thing, and for the West, it's a good thing. I'm a Westerner, nevertheless. So yeah, I think I know we disagree
well,
on that one too.
it wasn't Russians that killed Russell, right? I mean,
Yeah, but
that's why
but we have criminals everywhere, right? That's I would not. I do
I've
not
never
take.
had any. Here's the thing: I'm a Russian. I care about my people. I put my people 1st.
Mhm.
I'm a nationalist,
Okay.
and all that other stuff about like should we
Mhm.
have socialized medicine or not? How should we arrange our government or not? I'm pretty much open to anything. In fact, I'm pretty sympathetic to the communist or the socialist worldview on that. I don't find it. We probably should take care of people, and we probably should tax the corporations. They're just we shouldn't have a society run for profit. Yeah, why not? And I'm for these social conservative mores. But at the end of the day, it's just a fact that non-Russians attack Russians and white people in Russia disproportionate, and the crime that they inflict on the native population is disproportionate. It's covered up, and Russians are blamed for a lot of the bad things that non-Russians do, and that's just a fact. And so I wrote another article about, say, like these Chechens who run the 78th police department in St. Petersburg. You wouldn't see this if you were visiting the city,
Mhm.
and I lived in St. Petersburg. I love it. I wish I could be there right now, but I'm banned from the country. And
Sorry, I went south because I had Donetsk in my aim. That's why, and I didn't have the time to go to Saint Petersburg after I got back to Moscow. But I will visit it eventually.
it's a
I
great
hope.
city.
I hope.
It's very dirty though, and you'll basically start noticing that any city that isn't Moscow is a lot dirtier and a
You
lot more
see,
run down.
I disagree. I disagree. I was in Volgograd, right? Volgograd.
Oh,
I mean, it's far from being this. And except for the communists like I am, Volgograd, it's kind of unsuspecting city, right? It's I mean, it's not like flocks of tourists are going there, or you have
well,
that
not
kind
really.
of.
It's straight in that central, like, I mean, that's why the Ukrainians call them Moskals, because basically that's like the center, the economic and like living hub, like around
Yeah, but
that whole area.
Volgograd was pretty. I found the same things. I mean, clean, organized, much more quiet than Moscow, of course. Much, the dimension was much less. I went there accidentally on Unity Day, and I
Hmm.
was walking randomly, and then I got interviewed by this Pervi Canal. I think Pervi Canal. Rasia Din, the first.
I used to work there.
You used to work on that one. Yeah, they
Yep.
they they saw me. I mean, they saw me speaking foreign languages. I was vlogging in Portuguese and English, and so they came to me and wanted me to say some words and the like, and then and I saw this junction of this gathering of people with all the flags of the Russian Federation. They were near the Volga River, near where the last stand of the Soviets in the Second World War. And it for me it was a moment. I had an encounter with the policeman on Volgograd while I was alone at night because I made some stupid mistake there. But it turned out to be okay, and they were right. They actually were right. I don't know if you. I mean, I don't want to go on about this. This is my experience, and I really wanted to
No,
know
I've
more.
listened. I'm glad you had a good time. I've had literally great times. I have nothing but praise for the Russian people, and the police, even like the regular police, saved my ass from some Muslims
Yeah.
who were ganging up on me, and the police like arrived at in nick of time, and they just intervened. They like walked me to into the metro and like made me sure I was safe. And he was a Russian guy, and I was like, I looked at him, and he looked just like me, and I just felt a bond immediately, like a Slavic bond. So
Yes.
yeah, I totally get that. And listen, the thing isn't even for me, even if the streets were not clean, I wouldn't care. I'm still, going to be pro, my people. It doesn't matter to me whether even if they were like evil, even if they were just like committing all these horrible I'd still be pro my people. It's non-negotiable. I was born into this community for a reason. There was no mistake. Obviously I'm meant to be a part of this community and to advocate for their interests. That's it, period. What I'm saying is very simple. It's that we have a government that doesn't represent the Russian people. Obviously, it's mostly non-Russian, and a lot of weird stuff that seems to run against the sort of good nature of Slavic and Russian people. The sort of communal sharing, justice-oriented nature is tolerated, and it's tolerated in the name of these bizarre morals, which are you know, like multiculturalism or multinationalism, as it's called in Russia, or Abrahamic ecumenism.
Hmm.
Basically, the fact that we're all, and it's like, where are they getting these ideas? And then they have these weird globalist set of ideas about global health and global integration and biometrics and digital currency and all this weird stuff. It's like, where? And then you read the same memos coming out of the West. You see them coming out of all these globalist organizations, and you see it being repeated by the Russian government. And you see people who are critical of this disappearing. Doesn't matter what aspect of this if they've ever critiqued. Uh, it doesn't matter actually if they're communists, if they're sort of like left-wing socialists, because those guys have also been arrested and disappeared. The Nazbols, for example, your people, they have a communist worldview. It's sort of like an extremist communist, not extremist, it's like a radical communist group that is against migration into Russia, which is a traditional left-wing socialist position because
Hmm.
it's seen as undermining the power of labor. Anyway, so they were having protests, lone protests, just lone kids standing with signs saying that they're against the demographic replacement of the Russian people, and they were taken by diversity police, by Chechens, and sexually abused, beaten up. And they're what's happened? We don't even know what's going on with them now. There's no trial. They're just being held in detention. This happens all the time now. I mean, this was happening all the time in the '90s as well, in the '80s in the Soviet Union. But now it's like the worst days have come back. So we got to talk about this. Russell's thing is not an isolated phenomenon. This is what I'm saying. There's a trend of just the rule of law completely flying out the window. People like being accused of being unpatriotic simply because they were in the wrong place at the wrong time, or because they're Kremlin critical in some way. It's very dangerous. We have to speak out about it. That's my big point.
Yeah,
I hand
yeah,
it
and
over to you.
no, yeah, and you made that point lots of times now. Is of course I'm you know like I explained a lot. I also I synthesize my view in this. I tried. Sometimes I do not choose the best English words. I'm not as good in English as you, and I'll say this. I see Russia as I saw in my in my younger days, as I saw the Soviet Union as like a beacon, or as you, if you like, the counterweight on the scale in this world. Because what happened to the world after the fall, for example, of the Soviet Union, and what descended upon Russia, for me was I mean, it was those were sad and dark days. And now that I see Russia rising, and also together with China and other countries and African countries, and I see hope in the restoration of balance again in the world, and I see that for me Russia is at the forefront of this. Of course, I had all these doubts about the functioning of Russian society, because I get bombarded in my world, in the Western world. I get bombarded with the news all the time, claiming that there are no freedoms in Russia. People there, this and that, and if you go there is dangerous, and so I had to go, and I intend to return. I want to see more. I want to talk to more people, and I actually,
Listen,
yeah.
yeah, talk to Russians. I swear to God, like I so someone in your chat writes, "This guy's anti-Russian." Of course. I say I love the Russian people. It's the non-Russians who are the problem. This guy's anti-Russian. I get called out for being. I had some Irish guy ban me from his pro-Russia chat, and he was like, "You're not a true Russian." Why? Because I'm not Orthodox and I don't support Putin anymore. I used to be both those things. So to them, it's like a set of beliefs. You can it's like a coat you can buy and you can put on. Yeah, you can be pro-Russian. Yeah, you can love Russia. You could be a friend of Russia. You can come live in Russia. You can marry and stay in Russia. You can have a half Russian kid. But like, why do I immediately lose my Russian card? Something I'm born into, just because I critique the government. Would you say that to a Portuguese? Not you. I mean, like, I'm just in general. Like, would a Frenchman say that? Like, if they're anti-Macron, oh, you're not a real Frenchman. Like, what are we talking about? People have gone insane. We can't have a reasonable conversation about this. Is
Well,
what I'm saying. But I
on,
can with you. That's why I'm glad we had it.
well, thanks. And on the account of comparing presidents, is for me, I think the view is that we can speak about Macron, or we can speak about any Western president. We in the West, many of us, more and more, are feeling that these are fake. They don't run anything. They're just the salesman of the company. They go there with the suit. They are the ones that look the best, present themselves with the best looking, and talk the
Yeah.
best words. And that's it. They don't decide anything. Well, people like me, and I know that you disagree with this, but people like me believe that actually Putin runs things. Not like, I do not believe he runs it like an autocrat, a complete dictator, because Russia is far more complex than that to run. I think the local powers have a big, huge role in maintaining and and running Russia. But I think I look at Russia. I do this simple, very basic analysis. That is, look at Russia after the fall of the Soviet Union, the 10 years that followed it, and after, and the trajectory of the Russian society after Putin took over. And it's undeniable that the life of the average Russian person has improved very much. I mean, I used to hear about the mob, the crime running amok in the streets in the cities of Russia, and I've walked alone at night, drunk, with a purse of money on my on my on my waist in Moscow, and in Volgograd, in Rostov, and no problem, no problem. Things, it's just cities, normal cities working. That's what I thought. So this is my opinion. I know you disagree, and you have your
No,
reasons.
I do think that things have gotten better. But one gang of criminals basically took over the country. That's what happened. Putin is a criminal. I mean, he is. He had. I mean, you should see the pictures of him from the '90s. He's wearing like an Adidas tracksuit, like, and he was part of the Sobchak criminal mafia. He was part of the judo gang, as it's called. All of his friends are criminals. I mean, like literal criminals. I mean, everyone he associates with has blood on their hands. Like, I mean, Prigozhin was his caterer, his buddy, before he committed a mutiny on him, and Prigozhin was a literal murderer, like before, like actual criminal murderer. So I don't know what to tell you about that. Like, yes, Putin and his friends are a gang of criminals. Yes, things got better. They stabilized the country. I go into that on the blog. I don't deny that. I like getting drunk and walking around in the city at night. I used to do that all the time in St. Petersburg as well. And I like that you like Russia, and I'm glad that you want to come. The problems that I'm talking about are more like, but there are parts in St. Petersburg I would not advise you to go, drunk or at all. Why? Because there are non-Russians there, and you can roll the dice, and you can say, I have an ideology that says that we're all the same and I shouldn't feel this way. I mean, I
No,
like you. I don't want anything bad to happen to you, but hey, if that's how you feel,
no,
I can
but
tell you where you can go. So,
no, but look, I'm not. I have that ideology, and in principle, I do respect all ethnicities and all diversity. But I know that. But you cannot you cannot exaggerate on both sides, right? You cannot go to the extreme. Uh, I know, for example, it's not the color or the DNA of a certain person that makes her a criminal. It's their upbringing. This is my reading. According to me, this is my reading. The circumstances in which the person goes throughout in his life, it plays a huge role, even in the changing of the DNA chain that he was born with. And so I think that if you provide opportunities and good quality education for everyone, despite their ethnicity or their origins, you can have a pretty harmonious, diverse society. This is my belief. I do not
well,
go.
listen, if you're a communist and you like the Soviet Union, let me tell you how it was in the Soviet Union. There was segregation, and most Russians want that to come back. They had their ethnic republics, and they were not allowed. You had to have internal passes. There were internal passports. You were not allowed to come and resettle in a Russian neighborhood. And people were separate but equal, and that's how, that was how the Soviet Union did it,
Mm.
and that's correct. That's the right way to do it. We can be multicultural as long as they stay on their side of the fence, and we can stay, and we can create, and we can live among our own
Uh,
people.
uh,
uh yeah.
I just want to say that about me being a communist is not. I do not. I did not become a communist because of the Soviet Union. I did become one because of the history of the Portuguese Communist Party and the role it had in on the Portuguese history, namely the role it had before during and after the revolution of 1974. I don't know if you know that part of the
Yeah,
Portuguese
we talked
history.
about it last
Yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah,
We
okay.
talked about it.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's the main. That's my. Of course, the Portuguese Communist Party had relations with the Soviet communist with the Soviet Union, and that's undeniable because the Soviet Union supported movements throughout the world. But but I can tolerate the different things between the communist parties all over the world, and I think they have their own culture, their own roots, their own particular history, right, rooted in their culture, right. That's the thing. I do not deny, I do not sanctify anyone. Please don't get me wrong. I do not say that these are the bad guys and these are the guys, the ones I support are the good ones. I do not sanctify. I tolerate things for greater causes. That's it. You can call me all the names for that, but it's the way I think, because it's impossible to have a perfect system anywhere. And even science says this, right? If you study any organic system or any system, any social system, it is zero imperfection does not exist, right? So, but you have to look at the overall, and this is what I do. I look at the overall perspective, and it's like in agriculture. If you provide the good field, most of the seeds will flourish well. It doesn't mean it all will flourish, and I
Yeah.
think a society works a little bit like this. This is my analogy. Sorry if I went on too long.
No, no, I understand. It's funny. When I was wrapping up with my last podcast with Russell, that was the topic that we came onto at the end as well. Um, I agree. I don't believe in a perfect society. All I want is a more Russian society. That's it. I think that the people at the top are not Russian. I think they rely on non-Russian janissaries to police and terrorize and ritually humiliate the Russian population. I think the Russell case is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. And the fact that there's not going to be any justice is even more proof of what I'm talking about. I think in a Russian system, Russell would be given, not this wouldn't have happened, and Russell would have, his killers would have been brought to justice immediately. But for the sake of tolerance and some sort of perhaps some ideological narrative, or perhaps Russell's critique of the government, we're in the situation that we're in right now. But I guess that's all I have to say for now, because I mean we are still speculating. We don't know all the facts. I'm sure some information will come out,
Hmm.
but yeah, it's. I think we touched on all the on all the relevant topics, and let's hope for the best. How about that?
Yeah. Yes. Let's hope for the best. I really considered at first Russell for me was like this distant idol, but with time and when I start talking to him and more often, and we often when we ended our live streams, we would talk like for 1 or more hour, uh, and we became friends. And since the minute I was there in his presence, I mean, he picked me up in the bus station in Donetsk at 5:30 in the morning, amidst the blasts afar. You know the music. I don't know if you've been to Donetsk, but it's a constant music there, constant blasts afar, and sometimes more near, sometimes more distant. And but I immediately felt like I was in presence of family. I just want to finish the live stream with these words in memory of Russell. And all the time we spent there, and while we were driving through Donetsk, and we went out to dinner with veterans from the Vostok battalion, and everyone received me, welcomed me, and I mean, I really felt like pampered in Donetsk. This is my really honest opinion, and I felt that Russell introduced me to everybody as a communist. It was like this was like a like a this card that you show to the person to introduce yourself. It was like a welcoming card or something. And everyone where we went to the grocery store or to his friends, or we met people on the street. This is my friend. He's a communist. He's from Portugal, and it was like a good thing. I really felt at home there. And at the end, Russell insisted when I went back. He adverted me that I would go to the interrogation room before leaving the Donetsk Oblast. I was also prepared for that when I came in, but there was none. I just it was easy to get in. But when we got out, I went into the room and I wanted to share this with you, if you allow me just a minute or two more. And
Yeah.
we he insisted to go with me into the interrogation room, which was allowed. I mean, he crossed the border for that effect. They took our passports. We waited there for like about 15 minutes, and then we were called in. And then Russell was answering all the questions for me because he spoke Russian, and I speak very, very little, not enough for a conversation like that. So Russell was answering. I was answering to Russell, and Russell translating, and some of the questions Russell was answering for me. And at the end, the guy, the FSB officer there, he came and he handed me my passport, and he raised his hand and he said, "Non pasarán." And he shook my hand with a smile, and this was my impression of Donetsk and of the Russian authorities, and I was very well impressed. Yeah, and I want to say this, and that I gave a hug to Russell. He handed me to also a buddy of him from the times of the fight, uh, a South Korean guy. Diversity. His call sign was is Smay. Snake, isn't it? It means. And
Uh-huh.
Smay drove me to Rostov. Russell told me to just quietly told me, this guy is making you a very good price. If you can pay him a little bit extra, it would show appreciation. I told Russell no problem, of course. And when we got to Rostov, Smay turned to me and said, I was about to take money out of my wallet to pay him, and he said, "No, it's nothing." He didn't want to charge me for it, and of course I insisted, and I put the money in his hand. So yeah, this was you see, I give you a good experience with diversity. To finish our podcast, if you want to say anything else, please do now before before I disconnect the live stream.
No, I really hope that I hope that we get some closure with this, because I just don't understand the people who are saying like, oh, it's about bad PR. Oh, it's about bad for morale. It's like, listen, idiot. There are a lot of actual people, like actual idealists, I guess you could call them, that have come to Russia, who want to come to Russia, who have tried to help Donbass, and they demand answers. Like, what's going to happen to them? There have been Serbs who've been abused by the FSB, and I've written about that before in Donbass.
You mean
There's been
Serbs? You said. Sorry, I didn't get it.
yeah,
Serbs
Serbs,
from
Serbs.
Serbia. Yeah, from Serbia.
Yeah.
Right.
There are a lot of Russians who haven't been given citizenships, even though they fought for Donbass, and they've been arrested when they were sent back to their countries. There are Europeans who aren't getting. So I want that, what you're talking about, that experience, that good experience. I want that for everyone who is pro-Russian. I think that is 100% like necessary. If you're going to support Russia, if you're going to be on Russia's side, you need to be treated well. And that's the real thing that's going on here. And just by trying to sweep it under the rug, first of all, there's already thousands of them in Donetsk, in Russia, and they've heard about it. And this makes them nervous, and other people will hear about it. So that's the real concern here. It's actually, treating these people right. I think everybody should be treated correctly. There should be some rule of law imposed. It shouldn't just be mob rule. But anyway, I'm rambling. I just want to say, I hope justice is served. I hope we get our answers. and I hope other people who come and who want to help Russia and help Donetsk and all that they're not, what do you call it, disheartened or dissuaded by this. But I guess we'll see. Thank you
Uh,
for having me.
no, you're welcome. I hope to talk to you again. I have criticism here, which of course, I accept. It says the host has no historical understanding of Russia. Maybe not. I accept that. I have no understanding of many other things, and but I do try to read out the current geopolitical scene and to make my opinion accordingly, not following uh, completely blindly, I think, any of the sides. And I always, especially, I do not take any bribes or any money or any other incentives for anyone for doing what I do. So I do it purely out of heart. If I am mistaken, I'm sorry for that, but that's how it is. Okay. Thanks for people who've been commenting and watching us, and I see you. I see you on the next one. Thanks,
Bye bye.
Rolo, again. Bye bye. Please don't disconnect your call right away.